Welcome to Page to Screen, the podcast where Nikki and Christina discuss books that were turned into movies and films that were adapted from books. As always, we do remind you that spoilers lay ahead. Now, we invite you to decide with us the age-old question, which is better, the book or the movie?
Take 2 women plus 1 podcast. Divide it by how many times it took us to restart this because we're watching ourselves on video for the first time. And you get a lot of numbers that we can't figure out. Anyways, welcome back to Page to Screen. Joining, as always, is still my favorite computer, Christina.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. If you asked me to tell you the numbers, I would have told you inconclusive because I don't math. We can't figure it out.
I'm like a magic 8-ball. Like, try again later.
Yeah, we use a magic 8-ball as a computer,
Yeah.
which does not calculate anything.
No.
NASA can't figure out how to get us into space. Well, what tools are they using? Magic 8-balls.
Magic 8-balls, prayers, and witches.
That's what NASA is if it's left up to us.
Yeah. Also, it's pink.
Luckily, it was not left up to us. And today we will be discussing Hidden Figures, the book written by Margaret Lee Shelderly about a group of Black female mathematicians that helped NASA win the space race. The book came out in 2016 and the same year adapted into a feature film, a historical dramedy directed by Theodore Melfi and starring Taraji Henson, Olivia Spencer, Janelle Monáe, and a bunch of actually awesome actors in supporting roles.
I had no idea that Kirsten Dunst was in this movie.
You know, speaking of Kirsten Dunst, she has snuck up on me as a really great actress.
Oh, she's super good. She's
super good. I've always liked her, don't get me wrong, but it's just I'm starting to realize like she should have been talked about more all of these years.
100%. She should have won the Oscar this year, but that's neither here nor there. Just saying, I think she should have won, but whatever, it's totally fine. Anyways, we're not here to talk about Kirsten, we're here to talk about Hidden Figures. I'm going to start off by saying that the American school system really fails a lot of individuals by not explaining what happened. Like first of all, just the creation of NASA, for one. Christina and I are both from Florida. We can see rockets shoot off from down your street. You know what I mean? Like, you did that, right? Like, they'd announce, like, a space shuttle launch, and everyone in your neighborhood goes outside to watch the stupid space shuttle, and you're like, ooh, it's 1,000 miles away. Like, you can't see it.
It's a whole part of life here. I mean, my uncle, I mean, now my aunt divorced him, but my uncle, at some point, worked for NASA. Like, I think a lot of us know people who work for NASA, even if it's, like, 1 or 2 removed. You hear this stuff, too. Like, there's been multiple times where I'm like, what the fuck was that noise? And it turns out it's just a rocket. Yeah. Florida is a really weird place.
I think we covered that before when we were like, remember in elementary school when they taught us to zig, not zag?
Honestly, think about the fact that we were taught how to run from gators to listen out for rocket ships and how to go to Disney World. This is not a normal way of life down here.
I think Florida is just army training, but they don't tell you that. Like, if you survive and you live to a certain age, I think you get like a Congressional Medal of Honor. Like, that's gotta be it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they'd put us through what they put us through. Like, shovel your feet so you don't get stabbed by a stingray. Like, okay, cool. Why are you telling me this? But yes.
No, so math failing us in school.
Yeah. We've been failed numerous times in schools. And I don't think it's just a Florida thing. I think it's a whole public school thing. We didn't learn about I didn't realize everything that went into the creation of NASA was previously NACA, which did all of the spacecrafts and helped out with every stupid war that we've ever been in. You don't hear about that. You don't hear about how many women were actually involved in that. You don't hear about how many colored women and men were involved in all of that. And no one told me that math was going to be that important to the whole thing. Like, I figured math was important. Like, I don't, duh. But also, like, am I really going to need, like, long division in my everyday life? No, because I don't work for NASA.
Yeah.
Even
But as we've discussed, I think that my math failings will not be an issue until I'm baking and I have to cut a recipe in half because I only bake for myself and my husband, and then I'm looking at like a third cup of milk and one egg that I have to cut in half. I don't know how to do it.
But these women would. These women would. And that is something that I'm like, and it's not just like, it's all women at that time period between, you know, because the book starts in the 1930s and goes all the way through the 1960s. And it's something that I never fully, like, you hear about it where it's like, oh, women had to join the workforce because the men were in the war. And I didn't realize that women at that time were comfortable being super smart. Does that make sense? Like, it feels weird to say that because, you know, there's always this idea, like, you watch, like, Mad Men and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As we get towards the 60s, where it's this idea that women didn't want to be seen as too smart because they wanted to land a husband. Like, that's what we saw in movies and TV, where that you didn't want to be smart because the men wouldn't want to be with you. And then you have this whole book about all of these super geniuses that no one talks about.
Mm-hmm. One thing I thought was so interesting was that, you know, to be a woman, you are facing a lot against you. And then to be a Black woman, it's even more tremendous, the obstacles that you have to face. But it's interesting that in, you know, Black culture, they are taught, like, we have to be better. We have to be at 100% all the time, dressed to the nines every single time. We have to be as good or better in order to be seen as half. Yeah. Like, we have to go even further. And it's interesting that they are still, like, not succeeding in a lot of jobs. But then with math, it's not a subjective review of work. It's a very objective. Yeah. If the math is correct, it's correct. If the numbers are right, they're right. And there's no more, you know, bullshit that you can hide behind in looking at work from a Black female versus from a white male. So all of these guys that I don't think that they were necessarily allies, and I don't think that they cared to advance Black women, but they knew that the work was better. Yeah. And they also knew that they could pay them less. So of course, like, they moved them up, and it ends up being this, like, almost accident that they end up succeeding. Yeah. But it's a happy accident. It's a good thing that it happened, and it is, like, surprising that it's a lesser known story. And of course it's not something that they're going to teach to white girls in Florida. Like, we're not going to hear about this.
Yeah, they don't want us to get smarter than we are. They don't want us to take over the world. Like, that's the other thing too, is that there's so much innovation with women. I just want to say this out loud in general. With women, there's so much innovation that nobody really wants to talk about. And what did I have growing up? American Girl doll books? Like, cool, great. The one story you're going to give me about a person of color is Addie. Mm-hmm. I wish that growing up I would have had the schools that we were in would have given us the resources to let us know what we could achieve and what we could do. Because I often feel like, looking back on time in school, that I was pushing myself because that's just what I do. I've always pushed myself to be better and to have as good a grades as humanly possible, except at math. Don't look at my high school math grades. Do not look at my high school math grades.
I was always on A-B honor roll, not A honor roll.
Yeah, listen, I did A honor roll once, and I was like, I'm tired. Math is hard, y'all. But I wonder how different my life would have been if these stories versus the stories of the men of history. Yeah. If they gave you both, like, this is the man who went to the moon, this is the woman who gave you the math to make sure he didn't die like an idiot in space. Yeah. You know, if you could have had both stories side by side and I could have seen that growing up, that might have opened up a lot more opportunities to me. Because,
well, so you're saying that you wish that you hadn't read so much about Christopher Columbus and what a great guy he was when we were in elementary school?
Absolutely. That guy's a monster. That guy got lost. He got lost. Lost on a boat. Like, how do you get, this is, I know that having women on a ship is a bad luck thing. I know that people call it a Jonah. It's really bad. Don't put a woman on your boat. But I bet that woman would have been like, listen, pull over and ask for directions.
No, think about this. We were not taught about the strong, smart, intelligent Black women who got us into space, but we were taught about the racist, murderous, rapist asshole who got lost.
Yeah. He got lost.
If that's not white male privilege, I don't know what is.
Right? And you don't even hear why he was on that trip. A woman sent him on that trip. A queen. A queen sent him on an expedition and he failed her. That's like I have done like the grocery shopping, like Instacart grocery shopping, and I asked for frozen pineapple. And when my groceries showed up, they sent me frozen corn. Now, I'm not saying I won't eat frozen corn, but I was hoping to make Dole Whips at home. And I'm sure it's pretty hard to make a Dole Whip with frozen corn. And yes, my DoorDasher was a man. I'm not saying that's not all men, but still, you had one job, Christopher Columbus, and you screwed it up. You screwed it up and you ruined it for everybody, and now people use you as an excuse to not work. So, thanks.
But watch now, instead, in 200 years, little kids are going to be reading about Steve with Uber who found corn.
They're going to have a day off from school. It's Steve Day.
It's Steve Day. He discovered corn.
Yeah.
During a pandemic.
Brave man. Corn. He did the most. The absolute most.
I guess one critique that I have with the book, because you mentioned it starts with the 1930s. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really then go into the 1940s and 50s. It sort of goes into the 40s and 50s and then back to the 30s and then forward to the 50s. Yeah. And maybe a little bit about the 40s, and then let's revisit the 30s again. But we're mostly going to be in the 50s.
Yeah. It does jump around a lot.
Yeah. I wish it hadn't. Like, I feel like nonfiction, like right now you and I have been reading this book called Disney's Land for I think 2.5 years.
Yes.
And the thing with Disney's Land is that it is primarily in order of timeline, but the chapters are they can be either long or short. Like there's one chapter that I just read that was like 2.5 pages, and then the next one's like 20 pages, because the way that it's told is in chronological order, but within the chronological order, there's separate subject matters that each chapter tackles. And I sort of wish that the book had been a little bit more about that, like really establishing who the main individuals are that we're going to follow, and then telling it in order, but within like subjects, because it really went out of order, and it was hard for me to follow who people were because of that. And like, I didn't get a good handle on them.
No, I agree, because when we talk about the movie is based off of just 3 women who are a mix of every other character from this book.
Yeah.
And that's, I completely understand why. And there's a great quote by the author about it. But there's just so much. And I wish that I also wish it would have been full on linear, because Christina and I talked about it. It's so fact heavy and so history heavy that you'll read a chapter and you'll start the next one and be like, wait a minute, did I, what? Okay, let me just go back for a second. And then you go back and you're like, wait a minute, what? Hold on, let me go. So there's so much going on, and it's all really important information. Some of the stuff just like really blew my mind, though. The stuff that these women were working on and doing, I thought was ingenious. I do think it was a little bit of a disservice to make the film feel like only these 3 women were doing anything, because I there were so many women involved in this, so like that it really did blow my mind that I had no idea. I had no idea, and it's not something that anyone would have brought to my attention, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it was just really, that upset me while I was reading the book. I was sad by the fact that not only am I terrible at math, but that I was so ignorant to what really happened in American history to make us do what we needed to do. And
I felt like the thing that I was excited about with this book was really like hearing about these women and what their lives were and how much they were working on themselves and how like segregation and everything was like battling against them and stuff. And I felt that every now and then, not every now and then, actually quite frequently, that the facts of the space race and the math of what they were handling weighed down all of the other information, and it felt like the writer was like, well, I need you to understand thermodynamics in order to understand how hard these women fought. It's like, whoa. I really don't need to. I don't need to understand thermodynamics at all. I just need to understand who this woman is, and I kind of don't, which is sort of making me sad. And little facts sometimes still escaped through all of that heaviness that I found to be very interesting and really upsetting. So, like, one of them was when when she realizes, I don't even know who it was some chick, when she realizes that she's working on this stuff and she got here and she's happy, and then she's like, well, wait a minute, you know, we're trying to put democracy in these other countries, and the other countries are responding with, well, look at the way that you treat black and brown people in your country, so why are we going to take that? And then her thinking, yeah, wait a minute, why? And her, like, questioning, you know, America while still being proud to be an American. Like, little moments like that I thought were really interesting, and I kind of wish that instead of that being 1.5 sentences, that would have been the chapter.
Yeah.
And instead the chapter is about math stuff, and I kind of don't care about the math stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was the point, too, is that it's supposed to remind us that the reason these women were there because they're geniuses.
Right.
But I did like how each chapter had these super historical events that we learned about in school.
Yeah.
We learned about these sit-ins and things, but we didn't learn about everything else that was going on at the same time. So it was really interesting to have this full circle moment to realize what these people were going through in their jobs and how absolutely racist Virginia was. And that if you just went 15 miles out of town to West Virginia, totally fine.
Yeah.
You're in Virginia proper, and it's the Democrats who were the problem.
Yeah.
There was the Democrats who kept saying no. And then you have this small microcosm of super geniuses who are just like, we kind of don't care. They kind of gave up. There's this whole story about this colored only table in the lunchroom. And one of the women, I loved it. Yeah. It was so sassy.
I love this story too. I wish that this was in the movie.
Me too. It was just such a sassy little piece of like history to put in there.
And you can see like Janelle Monáe doing it too.
Yes. Just putting it, there's like, this one woman keeps taking the sign off the table and putting it in her purse, and then the table would have no sign on it until someone realized that the sign was missing, and they'd put a new one out there, and then one day it just never came back. Yeah. And it's like, it's so interesting. Like, and it was so sassy. It's so like passive aggressive, and it's so something I would have done too. Like, don't tell me where to sit. I know what I'm going to do. And I do wish it had been in the movie, but it was so interesting to hear that, like, after a while, and this was from, like, the 30s. This wasn't even the 60s yet. This is the 30s and the 40s section of the book, I think, because, you know, they bounce back and forth. But it was definitely early before the space race when it was still NACA. And the sign just disappeared, and it was like it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah. You know, it wasn't, like, there's a lot of stuff that's in the movie that doesn't really translate over from the book because it didn't happen.
One could say that. One could say that the movie doesn't translate because it's made up of a bunch of bullshit.
There's this part where poor Taraji P. Henson her character has to go to the bathroom and she has to run all the way back to the East Computing area where the colored bathrooms are, because there are no colored bathrooms in the building that she's been moved to. But it did, like, that was upsetting that was in the movie, because that wasn't an issue for them. There's one story about one of the girls, and I want to say it was Dorothy.
Dorothy, I feel like even though there's a bunch of other people in the book, I do think that Dorothy is probably, like, talked about, like, as an individual.
Yeah.
You can kind of follow her more in the book, and that's probably why they picked her for the movie.
Yeah. Dorothy and Katherine Johnson are the two that as soon as I started reading the book, I was like, I do know these two names. But I think it was Dorothy who, she was working in one of those big white-only buildings, and they didn't have signs on the bathroom, so she was just going. Yeah. It didn't say no colored people. It didn't say white only. It was just an unmarked bathroom, and she was going in there, and they had one situation where somebody said, like, she shouldn't be in there. No one did anything about it. It was a non-issue. It was never a thing.
But this is the upsetting thing, and the director tried to defend himself, because there's some major white savior problems with the movie, because in the movie they have this made-up character played by Kevin Costner, and I think he's great in the movie too. I think he's very likable, but unnecessary, because in telling the stories of these women, a lot of it is not because of white people saving them or white people allowing them to do things or greeting them at the door. A lot of it is them just going, oh, those are the rules? Well, fuck your rules, because I'm going to do this anyways, and I deserve to be here, and therefore I will be here, and please tell me that I'm not. And then white people not doing it, not arguing with them. And it kind of takes away agency, and it takes away a little bit of that can-do sort of attitude that they had, by giving the explanation as to why changes occurred to a white person as the one who is making it happen. And it also, like, is upsetting, because it feels like, and I don't think this is really said directly in the book, but it feels like they got ahead, not by white people greeting them, but by white people saying, you know what, we got to get the work done.
Yeah.
So I don't care that you're here. I care about the work, which is sort of like the whole Lincoln thing. Like, I don't really care about slavery, but I care about keeping the Union together. Like, okay, you're doing a good thing, but why are you doing the good thing?
Mm-hmm. I don't think they realized they were doing a good thing, is the whole thing. And that's like the whole overarching thing of the book too, is that no one really knew what they were doing. Yeah. Like, they're literally making up math. Yeah. I can't do math, and they're creating more of it. Like, stop making it. I can't do it. Stop making it. Like, I thought we already decided there are, like,
we're good.
Yeah. We figured it out. There's division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. Like, don't make it harder than it has to be.
Can I tell you, I don't know what math has to do with flying.
Yeah. Just, I don't want to be thinking about math while I'm on a plane. Okay, It's hard enough to fly as is. I don't need the full-on... They explain in this book, at the beginning of the book, within the first few chapters, they explain flight. And the air going over and under a wing. And I'm sitting there looking at this going, I don't want to know. I just want to make sure I just want to know I'm going to get from point A to point B and not get sick on the plane or not fall out of the sky. Like, I don't want to... Let's not and say we did. Next chapter, please.
You know what it feels like? When she starts to go into that stuff and it really explaining, like, the math and science of things, it feels like when you're in a conversation with someone at work that you don't really care about and you're like, wow, well, that's crazy. Yes. No way. Really? They said that? It's like you're saying that and they're not taking the hint that you don't care.
And it's upsetting because the stories of these women, when they started talking about the stories of the women and the histories of them, and how they had to leave their homes, these places they've grown up with forever, to go into this place where they weren't actually full-time employees. It was all temporary. You never knew what was going to happen. Those were the stories that I resonated with more versus the this is how a plane works. Like, I'm scared. Don't tell me that. Oh, by the way, if they didn't create this math, John Glenn would have just fallen out of the sky, or he'd still be floating up there like Interstellar. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. He's just floating around. What was that, George Clooney? Is he the one who's stuck in space from that movie with
George
Sandra
Clooney
Bullock?
is stuck in space in the Sandra Bullock movie,
Yeah.
but Interstellar is all right, Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. What's the one where the guy makes
it Gravity?
Gravity. There
Yeah.
are so many space movies, and no one talks about math in those. Actually, they probably do. I don't watch a lot of space movies. Do you know why? Because of Armageddon.
That one was so good. You're
No.
like, they can't get better than this one.
No, Armageddon makes it... Okay, we're going to go off on a tangent, and I'm letting you know now. You can skip ahead about maybe like 10 minutes. Okay, if you want to hear more about the book, skip ahead 10 minutes. If you want to hear about Armageddon, stay tuned. Armageddon makes me so mad. It makes me absolutely livid.
Oh, because they thought it would be more intelligent to explain to drillers how to go into space and
Then train
how to drill.
astronauts how to drill. Not only that, but they created his entire oil rig. You created it. Just teach the astronauts how to use it. You made it. You made it, and then you had them come in and look at it and go, "Hey, that's my oil rig." Yeah, but and now we're gonna teach you how this asteroid is hurtling towards space. You had enough time to create a replica oil rig instead of just training people? What is wrong with you? Hey NASA, you had women who did math. You know, you could have called they were still alive. They were still alive at this point in history. You could have called Katherine Johnson and been like, "What's the math equation for destroying an asteroid?" And she probably would have had it to you in a week. And then you would have just set up an astronaut to do it. But no, you called a whole oil rig. You called it an oil rig to do. I am so mad. I am absolutely livid.
In all of this, though, where's the animal crackers on Aerosmith's daughter?
Does that involve math? How many hops does it take to get from one belly button to a mouth? I don't know.
Exactly.
But seriously, and then the more I watched Hidden Figures, the angrier I got about Armageddon. because they have to do
so much work for the tiniest little problems.
And it's so much math is involved. And all I kept thinking was, do I really think Ben Affleck can do the math to save a spaceship? No.
He can't do the math to figure out how the Dunkin' Donuts cup won't spill on the Munchkins when you pick up your
your mail.
Eats. Yeah.
Like I was so livid thinking because I learned a lot about space after watching this. Jesse is this huge space nut. Like he watches every space launch. He's obsessed with it. He also really loves airplanes too. He's obsessed with it. I know, Christina. But it was one of those things where in the epilogue of the book, they actually talk about Apollo 13.
Yeah.
And how the math that Katherine Johnson did helped them. It was a modified version of her math equation. I don't want to give her full credit because they do make a point in the book to say she didn't do it all.
Which is contributing. Yeah.
The Tom Hanks character in Apollo 13 also contributed by looking at, basically the math is that you could look at the stars. If your computers went down, you'd be able to determine how to get back into Earth's orbit by looking at the stars. But Apollo 13 had exploded, so there were bits and pieces all over the place that were confusing them. Kind of like me. I'm like, oh, shiny. That's a star. But he used the shadow of the moon on Earth to determine using sort of a modified version of her math. And I was like, that's so interesting that he was able to do that. Do I think that anybody in Armageddon could have done that? No, I do not. 100%.
Wait, isn't Steve Buscemi in Armageddon?
Yes, he is. He's the best part of Armageddon.
I think he could do it.
I bet, you know what, I do bet he could do it, but he was not the leader he was not the leader. That's the problem. Gary Sinise was also in it. Gary Sinise could do it.
I've got questions about Gary Sinise.
I think Gary Sinise and Steve Buscemi could work together to figure out that one. They need two white men to do the math of one. one woman.
I was just sitting here laughing because the NASA people had problems figuring out, well, if we get lost, we got to look up at the stars. How do we get home? Oh, and also that one ship that we made blew up, so that's throwing us off a little bit. I was just trying to think of like any other occupation where it's like, well, how are we going to serve people out there? Well, I don't know, because the last dinner crowd blew up, so that's going to cause some problems in the restaurant. That's not really a problem in other occupations.
The head at table 10 is not attached to a body. Do not ask if they want soup.
Don't get confused. Again, Randy.
God, Randy. Sorry, guys. It is very weird. And then also the thing that I found super interesting was the link between, in the book they talk about this, and once again, it's one of those like one-liner things where I'm like, we should have dived in deeper on this, that we were having huge race issues throughout all of the United States. And then all of a sudden, Russia's like, Sputnik. And everyone's like, stop everything. Everyone's equal. We're all Americans. Let's get a man to space. And it's so interesting because thinking about that, we do that now still.
Yep.
Something major happens and we're all angry at each other, and then we have one super horrible event happens and we're all like, let's all band together. Let's get the band together. We'll put a show on in the barn. And then it's like 2 weeks later, we're all like, no, I hate you still. And then another big event happens and we're like, we're friends again.
This is Watchmen. This is Watchmen. This is the whole thing where Ozymandias thought that he could fix all of the problems in the world by creating one thing that we all band against. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Manhattan's like, nothing lasts forever. It's not, there's no guarantee. It'll always keep going. And to be honest, like, that's one thing that made me so freaking angry reading this book is how little things have changed. Yeah. We're like 70 years after a lot of the things that occurred in this book, and nothing's different. I mean, pay equality. Yeah, women are still not paid the same. Yeah. Minorities are still not paid the same. It's still difficult to get a job. And I mean, one thing I thought about a lot was you think about the names in the book, Dorothy. And you think about names now, and there's definitely like an issue with having people from different like cultures and nationalities coming in with different names. It's like, think about that. It's like another hurdle that they have to like go over. It's just upsetting. And the whole bit when she was talking about good black jobs, and the thing that made me so sad and so angry is when she was saying how even if you got a good white job, like being a teacher, you might actually be paid more doing a blue collar job. Yeah. So it's like, I think the dad, right? Isn't it like one of their dads like chose to not do the white collar office job and instead stayed in the factory. I think he was a painter or something.
Yeah, he's the one who dies.
Yeah, he like goes off and he's like a painter because he's making more money. And then the whole bit about the professors, the black professors who found out that they were making less than the white janitor at the school. That
was so upsetting.
So upsetting.
That was upsetting. And also the other thing that was upsetting was one of the women petitioned to take classes. They do this in the movie too, but it's a lot different in the book. And she ends up going to the high school to take those classes, and she walks in and the high school is just trash. Yeah. And she's like, this is what they've been keeping us from. Like, this is what we've been fighting for. Do we even want to go here? Like, this is gross. And I'm like, it's ridiculous. It is. And it's the same thing. I mean, schools are still gross, so that hasn't changed.
Hey, do you remember when the squirrel got stuck in the vending machine at Port St. Lucie High School?
No, I missed that. What?
I'm pretty sure it was during your senior year. I'm pretty sure it was the year before my final year.
Oh, man, no.
A squirrel got stuck, and what was funny was that it got stuck. He was fine. Don't worry, everybody. Squirrel lived.
Don't call PETA.
But what was funny about it was that people weren't really upset, like, oh, I hope the squirrel's okay. They were upset because they couldn't get their drinks. Because everybody, it was like the whole soccer team got let out. Like, we all got let out. It was like during a break, during after school, the musical practice. It was during break, so everybody wanted to go get drinks, and nobody could because the squirrel was stuck.
Oh, my God.
Priorities.
See, I probably didn't notice that because I always brought my own stuff to school.
Oh, I did too. I was just watching the chaos from
Oh.
the sides.
Hi, yes, the squirrel.
Yes.
You put the
Fight
squirrel there,
each
didn't
other.
you? You put the squirrel in there. Surprise! Oh, it's a squirrel.
You know me, I'm squirrely.
No, I miss that. I know that, like, Christina and I spent a lot of time in portables that didn't have air conditioning. That's what Port St. Lucie High School had. Portables with no air conditioning in the summer in Florida. And they smelled bad because when it rained out, like, portables smell like crap anyways, but then it would rain. And it'd be hot Florida rain, and you'd smell it inside the portable, and it would smell like there's probably black mold in those rooms. We're probably immune to COVID because of the black mold from the portables at Port St. Lucie High School.
My favorite too was always like a hurricane would come through and demolish all the portables in part of the school. And they're like, well, we're going to put up portables while we fix the school. But then they would never fix the school, so then you're just in the portables, and another hurricane would come through and demolish all the portables again.
Oh my God. I remember wearing sandals on the walking up the platforms to the portables, and they're metal. And I can remember wearing sandals towards the end of the year and trying to grab onto the handrail. It's just like it's a big red burn mark on you. Like, wow. Oh my goodness. Good times.
Wow. Are we okay?
I don't think so. Florida is Army boot camp, 100%. I think it's a military, like, testing area. I think Florida's Area 51, and they just don't tell us.
I just love this idea of us, like, walking into these, like, portables covered in black mold, burning our hands. There's a rocket going off in the background, an alligator chasing us. We're not okay.
No, we're not okay.
We're walking in to read about a racist.
And on
who
top
got
of
lost.
on top of all of that, we're going through the average struggle of a teenager. So, like, we were messed up for a long period of time. For 4 years, we had some real big problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that part of the book really, that upset me too, because it was just like, you know, I never really thought about that's something we always learned about in school. It's like the struggle to integrate schools. And you see those pictures of that girl getting spit on and everything, being the first to integrate, and it's so depressing. And I never really thought much about what the school looked like that they were going into. What better world were they actually going to get? And to hear in this book that it was like a dilapidated, rundown school, I was like it's so upsetting that we would gatekeep trash.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah. You know, another upsetting thing, because you and I were white women, and I do think that there's something about, like, white feminists that they want to exclude the problems of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think white women, and we see it too with, like, J.K. Rowling and trans people. I think that white women tend to think, well, I'm a woman and I have it hard, and I have it more hard. I have it harder than men do. Therefore, I should be listened to. But they don't think that, they think that because a trans woman or a black woman, or dear God, a trans black woman shows up, and it's like, well, you can't say that you've had it harder than me because I've had it really hard. Well, yeah, you have had it hard, but guess what? Some other people have it even harder.
Yeah.
And they want to, like, discount that and not talk about it. And it's really upsetting when you read a book like this, and we were the bad guys.
Yeah.
White women were the bad guys. Because guess who was putting up that sign at the bathroom? It was a white woman.
Yeah.
Guess who is the one saying no at, like, these different junctures? It's a white woman. So it's kind of like when you just talked about the first black girl and getting integrated in the school. That picture is really famous, and guess who's yelling at her right behind her? It's a white woman.
It's two white women.
Yeah, and if you read about their relationship, that white woman tried to pretend like she wasn't racist in the decades later, and they tried to be friends, and she made her drive her, and she would sit in the back. like a Driving Miss Daisy type situation. And then they became not friends, and it was because she was racist the whole time, and she just didn't want to be known as being a racist. So it's like really upsetting, and it's upsetting to watch the movie where you've got Kirsten Dunst doing a really great job, and she's sort of despicable, but then they give her a very easy out at the end. Yeah. And not everything was wrapped up that easily. Like they wrap up a lot of things in the movie. It's like Kirsten Dunst gets an out, you get her being able to walk in and watch like the launch. That didn't happen. Yeah. It's just a lot of, let's wrap it up in a nice little bow so that white people can feel better about themselves.
Yes.
We haven't earned that.
No, we haven't. No. And it's true, like, just like you said about white women, I think, are some of the biggest proponents of whitewashing history. Yeah. And I'll be the first to say it because because honestly, think about how many teachers you had that were actually male teachers growing up. And what did you learn in school with your white female teachers? Do you know what I mean? And especially now, definitely now, with TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, we are at the apex of like a new white women savior situation. And not just a white women savior situation, it's white women stealing content from black creators. And it irks me so much. You have these, like, and it shouldn't. It's stupid things like a TikTok dance. But you didn't come up with that dance. Somebody more skilled and who deserves more praise came up with that dance. And it's sort of this thing with the math from what they were doing at NACA and NASA, where these women were doing it all and not getting any credit for it. And we're still doing that. But it's just like, it's just ingrained in us now at this point. And it's so upsetting. Like, I don't know why we have, like, oh my God, I'm just gonna get so angry because, Christina and I talk about this a lot. And we try our best to be very, like, we have actually, like, talked pre-recording anything and post-recording things to be like, we want to make sure it's inclusive for everyone. We want to make sure that we're not saying anything that's going to exclude anybody because it's two white women. I mean, we know that because we're white, we have a position that's a lot more elevated than some other people. And as women, we also know that we have no rights to say anything at all. So we're stuck in this middle ground, but we know that our middle ground is a little bit higher than some other people's. Yeah. And it's just
it's the whole theory behind the intersectional feminism. Yeah. It's like you have to be woke enough to know that you've got it better. Than some others. And it's funny because like we're kind of talking a little bit of a circle because it's like one thing about being an ally is letting other people talk. And, I think that this book and its adaptation as a film did a disservice to letting them talk. Yeah. Because it really doesn't. It's like it's directed by a white man and it is written by a white woman and then corrected by a white man. Yeah. That's the product that we have. So even though you've got Pharrell Williams showing up and you've got 3 black, female leads, you still had to create 2 white characters that end up not getting a comeuppance, and instead they learned the powers of being nice in the workplace. Like, I don't...
Yeah, that could have been in any other movie. Any other movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted... I think it's time we just talk about the movie, because, like you said, like, I think the book is really important. I'm going to say that now. I think the book is really important, and I think a lot of people should read it and really understand this history that basically has been hidden. Like, it's been there and it's been available, but no one ever talks about it. And, at first I gave it a pass, like, oh, because of NASA's secrets about space. No, it's just no one talks about the accomplishments of people of color to American history. They've been doing it longer, and they've been doing it better. And that's it. That's how you do. That should be the back title of this book. People of color are more American, and I'm going to put that out there because they have struggled with the racism of the white individuals, and they are still proud to be Americans, and they still helped us go to space, and they still make sure that we defeated the Nazis. Like I think Putin's a Nazi, so we didn't really defeat anybody. But
we've got Nazis in this country.
We did keep a Nazi to help us go to space. That is the truth. We didn't defeat all Nazis because we took one of them, and he helped us make rockets to go to space. Sorry, that's history. But see, I wish you guys could see Christina's face right now. She's like, I'm just putting it out there. That's true. We took a Nazi scientist, and he built us a spaceship. So, don't look at me like that. I'm gonna say it again. We kept a Nazi. We didn't defeat all of them. We kept one. We put him in our pocket.
I think that we have a lot of Nazis.
Yeah, we just put them in our pocket, and
then they vote.
They do vote,
unfortunately.
Yeah, we do have a lot of Nazis.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
It is a bummer. But yes, I do believe that we as white Americans could do better to be more American than than anybody else. It's just upsetting. You know what I mean?
It's upsetting and it's this in America. The beauty of it is that there's the chance of the American dream and following that. And the beauty of this country is the idea that it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter who you are, what the background is. You can build something for yourself. Mm-hmm. You have the ability to do that. This isn't the type of system where it's, the class system. It's not a type of system where you have to have certain things. But the problem is that is a lie. Yeah. And in the movie and in the book, they point out that the minute they get close to finishing the race, the finish line is pushed back further. Mm-hmm. So the American dream is a great thing to think about, but let's talk about the fact that in order to get to certain things, you have to have certain qualifications. In order to have those qualifications, simply put, you have a better chance at succeeding when you're born a certain color, when you're born in a certain location, and when you're born to a certain type of family. And if you have a penis, even better. There's just so much that goes into privilege that makes it easier for you. And doesn't mean that just because you're privileged that you don't have it difficult. We still have difficulties. That's not taken away because someone else has it even more difficult. And that's the sad thing is that the American dream has all of these different footnotes to it. And the thing about being black in this country is that if you still believe in the American dream after all of that, holy cow, because so many white people have already given up on that dream and they have it easier. Yeah.
Let's talk about the movie. Honestly, if I hadn't read the book and read about every single, there are 20, 30 different people that they talk about in this book who all do these amazing things and they all do bits and pieces and all of that. If I hadn't read the book before I saw the movie, I would have just been this movie is the best thing. I honestly, but overall, I loved the movie. I had so much fun watching it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The opening of the movie sets you up for you immediately know who these women are and you want to be their friends. I want to be Janelle Monáe's friend.
I think the opening is a great opening.
When she is chasing the cop car, I was like, this girl, I can't. I love her. I love her so much. She's just so funny. And then that carries on when she gets her heels stuck and she's in the winter. I was so scared. I was like, oh my God, girl, get out. You're in danger. Get out. And no one's helping her. No one cares. And then she spends the rest of the day not wearing shoes, which at that time would have been scandalous. But she's the only woman in that room full of men and nobody cared.
I was sad that Janelle Monáe didn't have like a bigger role, because anytime she's on screen, she's just so freaking likable,
Yes.
and she's really funny. Like that is like physical comedy that she's doing, and it works. And her face when she goes in and she's not wearing that shoe, and then she takes, and then she's just like,
Yes.
looking out.
It was so good. And when she wins her court case as a judge, and she comes out and she's like jumping around and everything, I was so happy for her. Like this, it is a feel-good movie. Yes. And it's funny because even though we all know what happens with that rocket ship, there is a moment where you're just like, oh my God, is he going to die?
You know what stupid thing I did? Because, I can mess up names. I was talking to my husband because he asked about when he like calls on Catherine specifically. Mm-hmm. And I said, what did I say? I was like, yeah, Glenn Howard. It wasn't exactly like that. I started explaining it. He's like, Glenn Howard. And I was like, yeah. I went, oh, whoops, that's the actor from It's Always Sunny. And he's like, no, you dumb bitch. It's Glenn Howerton. Like, you don't even know these people's names.
You were halfway there. This is why we don't work for NASA. This is it.
I can't do it.
I wish that the movie had gone a little bit more into how the women got to East Computing, because that section of the book, the fact that all these women worked for East Computing, they knew that they were going to join with the space program. They went home from East Computing one day, came back the next day, and suddenly it's NASA. I wish that would have been in the movie, too.
There's a different movie. There's a whole different movie that could have been made off of this book. Like, it's weird. Like, this movie, it's honestly very strange. It's like someone watched a YouTube video of the highlights of the book and then said, okay, I think I've got the idea.
Yeah. And like I said earlier, just combining all of these women into these main three women, I think was a real disservice to all of the women who did so much work there that we don't hear about. So it's great that now people are like, oh, Katherine Johnson, I know who she is. But she didn't do it alone.
Yeah.
And this is once again a thing that I find bothersome, is that we're always looking for like the leader. Especially as women, we're looking for who's the one who paved the way for us. It's never just one. Mm-hmm. There's so many who have these tiny stepping stones that we're all following to get to a higher ground, and to put all of that on the backs of these three women really takes away from the fact that it was a community that they felt safe in. And it was a group of people who they lived next to in their, like, outside of work. They vacationed together. You know, they did all these great, amazing things. They weren't just workers.
And some of the best scenes are the scenes where the three of them are together.
Yeah. Oh, when they're drinking and dancing.
I love that part. So, and that's where, like, you've got this magic of when they get together, and yet you are lowering the amount that happens. Mm-hmm.
And I understand why they put in some of the moments that definitely didn't happen. And by that, I mean, the tearing down of the colored sign on the restroom. I hate that part. That is very white savior, and I did not appreciate it. What I do appreciate is Taraji P. Henson's whole speech beforehand, where she lays it on all of them. And Jesse sat there and was like, yes! And I was like, exactly! Like, we're on the couch cheering her on the whole time, and then it cuts directly to that, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it takes away from it.
It really does. And the thing is that even in that scene where she's yelling, even if that scene, because it didn't happen. Yeah. She did not have that moment. She didn't have to. And yeah, she didn't have that moment in real life, but that scene is symbolic and expressive of a feeling that is true. And that's where it's like, okay, I'm fine with that being a created scene, because it still gets through to the audience a little bit easier and succinctly the issues that they're having. But then to add in the white savior scene, it makes it easier for predominantly white audiences to accept this and not feel guilty about it, which is wrong. And it goes. The problem is that you're saying, okay, we don't have enough time to talk about all these other women, but we have enough time to create 2 white characters, and we don't have enough pages in the script to have these other women have voices, yet we're going to create enough room for these 2 white people to have voices. Well, you can't have it like that. Yeah. That's where the problem is.
Yeah. It should not have been focused on any of, like, honestly, this is where I know you agree with me, because you said you agreed with me. This would make a great TV show.
100%. 100%. This would be such a good TV show. And you do like a really hyper-realistic TV show, and then you're able to have multiple seasons. You can have seasons almost like The Crown, jump around in decades too. Yeah.
And each episode could be dedicated to a different woman or a different group of individuals who are working on a different part, because they say it in the book a lot. They never had, I guess it would be like working on Game of Thrones. They never had a full script. Every woman was working on different bits and pieces, and then everything would come together at the end, and there you go. Now you have an airplane. And like, I think this would be amazing as a TV show, because you can pepper in the outside racism that's going on and compare it to how this microcosm of geniuses just didn't care. Not so much that they didn't care about racism, but that it didn't affect their day-to-day work in the way that the movie makes it seem like it did.
Yeah, and there's also the ability in a TV show to do stuff like what we enjoyed with the High Fidelity TV show, where they were able to give full episodes to other characters, and it's sort of a shame that there won't be more seasons, because I think that would have been really cool and fun.
Yes.
And with something like a Hidden Figures TV show, you can have standalone episodes highlighting certain characters and going into their backstories maybe a little bit more, but then have whole seasons about departments. Like, and this also, it's kind of boring, but it actually would be really interesting as a TV show.
I think as a TV show, I would be totally into it. I'd
be more interested.
Yeah. Because there's so much that we're not getting. Like, I mean, one of the women that they talk about graduated high school at 14 and college at 18. She is a literal super genius, and I would have loved to have seen more of how that affected her. Because to graduate so young and to be out there on your own literally at 18, you're a full adult and you've already done everything that needs to be done. Now you can just work. Like, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a super genius. Spoiler alert, I'm not a super genius.
You're no Wile E. Coyote, super genius.
I wish. But like, there are just some scenes that I don't think had a place in the movie that they did for shock value.
Like what?
The library scene.
Yeah.
That was the one for me where I was like, because the payoff is funny at the end. At the end of that scene, it's a funny little in-joke. But the whole thing as a whole, I didn't appreciate, because reading the book, we know that the NACA and the NASA teams wanted these women to learn about the IBM computer. They actively put together a group of women to study this and learn how the systems actually work. It wasn't men. It wasn't 2 men who couldn't plug in a computer. That's the other thing, is that they dumbed down a lot of other people when they didn't need to, because these women were already geniuses. And everybody knew it. It's in the book. There wasn't a male team that was working on IBM. It was the women.
This is sort of like the Harry Potter problem that I have. Like, you take out all of these things and then you put in like 20 minutes of Filch not being able to put up a sign in the movie. It's like, well, you told me that you didn't have enough time to do the other stuff, but then you give me that garbage. I don't understand. Yeah. But there's a part in the book where it's like the female calculator and her math isn't equaling to the male math, and they can't figure it out why, and it turns out because he's got the wrong numbers. Yeah. I mean, that's such a simple scene that you could have included to show, like, they wanted to believe him because he's a white man, but hers were correct, and it's because he had the wrong, or no, hers weren't matching up because he gave her the wrong numbers. Yeah. That's the level of incompetence. It's either, are you like specifically trying to make her look like a fool, or are you just incompetent? And which one is worse?
Yeah.
And they had like examples from the book that they could have used, and for some reason they threw those out and created new ones.
And that's also the other thing that upset me too, is that they completely erased in the movie the black men who are also working.
Yes.
Because there's a great part in the book where it's the same thing, where he sets up a test in their wind tunnel, and the white guy who is hired to work under him purposely screwed it up as a joke, and then his white supervisor laid into that white guy so hard in front of him, and it's like, you never do this again. You never do this again. And that is something that also should have been in, like, I think that it's wrong to erase the fact that there was so much more than just these 3 women of color doing everything. You had men there too. Yeah, they didn't face the struggles that the women faced, but the women also didn't face some of the blatant racism that the men faced. And that's clear from the book. Some of the stuff that was being said and done around these men weren't being done around these women because they thought of women as just the women. So to ignore that in the movie was, like, I get it. The writer of the book also said, like, you can't make a movie of 300 characters.
300 people, yeah.
Yeah. And that's understandable, but to completely just erase some of it, because if you only read the book, you get a lot of facts and figures and then some history. If you only watch the movie, you get some history and a little backstory, but complete erasure and of some really important stuff that you should know. So it's not perfect on either end, which is why I think a TV show would fix this.
Well, it's just so disingenuous to say, hey, we've got this great story that no one has heard of, so we want to take the responsibility of sharing the story with the world, but we're going to tell you another version of it that's actually not true.
Yeah. I wonder how much of that is because the book was optioned as to be a movie while it was still being written. It wasn't finished. This is a Game of Thrones. Oh my God, this is a Game of Thrones situation. I know I dropped Game of Thrones a little bit ago, but this is a legit Game of Thrones. This is last season Game of Thrones right here, right now. Where it's just really, everyone knows where it's supposed to go.
Honestly, you saw me. I got confused. We had to redo the opening of this podcast because I am still confused about my notes because I wrote down the movie and the book and they both have the same year. And I struggled with that for a second. The second time in a row, I'm like, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's right. They came out the same year.
Yeah, it was just, it's great for them. It's great for both parts because you have the book, you have the movie, you can sell it together as a package piece, but honestly, if I had to pick, I can't pick between the two. You need both. You need both to get a full picture of it.
I want the TV show.
I want the TV show too.
I'm a brat. I want the TV show.
I am not even going to lay claim to this, even though, like, TM. I'm not going to lay claim to it. Like, if somebody out there wants to do a Hidden Figures TV show, please do it. HBO, Stars, Netflix. Netflix, you've got money. Who could do it? AMC. You've got Walking Dead cash. What are you doing with that? Nothing. Make me a Hidden Figures TV show. You did Mad Men. Why can't we have Hidden Figures?
I would give the Hidden Figures TV show to Rodney Barnes. He is the executive producer of Winning Time, and he's done a lot of like Black-centric TV. And when he was talking about Winning Time, he basically said, because a lot of the people about Winning Time have come out and said that they don't like it because it's, about them.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, if you don't like it, let me tell you, I've read so many books and interviews to try and get the facts of this show correct. And everything in this show has a source. So if you don't like it, I've got some bad news for you.
Oh
Because
my
this
God.
shit happened. Like that, but that's the type of attention that
Yeah.
should be paid to the details. It's like, okay, we're going to read every freaking interview we can find of these people, every book. We're going to talk to whoever we've got that's still alive. And we're going to try and get the facts of this. And we're also going to try and explain it to the audience. Like, let's take 5 minutes and explain how an airplane flies, but let's do it in a really fun, entertaining way. That way, in the scene after that, you'll understand why it's so important that this whole group of people are working on it. And you don't get that in the movie at all.
No. That should be the opening of every episode.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Oh my God, the opening of every episode before the credits is the math and like how things work. Then you go into the opening credits and then you go into the episode about why that was important to what they're doing in this episode. Done.
Oh, but it has to be done to explain it to a dum-dum like me, so we're going to need some dino DNA. Like, that's the type of
like, get that little cartoon guy.
Yeah. I need some sock puppets. I need some cartoons.
But see, your idea to have him do it is way better. I was thinking Shonda Rhimes because of the sassiness of the women. That sass comes through so well.
Two of them together. Let's get like multiple producers, and we're gonna get a little bit of both.
I think it would be brilliant. I think it would be absolutely brilliant. And if we have Shonda Rhimes, she does have a deal with Netflix. So it's instantly going to be on Netflix. Coming to Netflix in 2023. Hidden Figures TV series. And you know what? I wouldn't be mad if they kept the 3 main characters from the movie and put them in the TV show, because they were great. I loved them. I believed everything they were trying to tell me. I believe that Taraji P. Henson, 1, wore glasses, and 2, is a super genius. Because she's writing all those equations on the board, and I was like, sure. I think that's how you get to space. Like, I don't know. Sounds good to me. Keep going. You know what I was like, that scene in the movie when it's the white guy from that TV show?
Bazinga?
That guy, yes.
Bazinga. When Bazinga shows up.
And you know what's funny? He supposedly plays a genius. I've never seen that show. He supposedly plays a genius on that show, and he's supposed to be the smart, like, white guy in this movie. And I was like, that's really funny that they did that to him, and he's dumber. But I think it's so funny that there's that scene where he's trying to explain the capsule having to come back into the go no go. They're trying to explain the go no go, and she's like, "So what you mean is?" And he's like, "Yeah, that sounds like me when I'm asking follow-up questions. Like, that was so me in school when the teacher would be up there saying something and be like, 'Excuse me, so to clarify, what you're telling me is blah 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 blah,' and they'd be like, 'Yes, it's like exactly what I said.' I'd be like, 'Okay, great.' Wait, excuse me, like the whole time.
I love the beginning where you see her as a little girl.
Yes.
And she's like, it's pretty straightforward from there. The guy's just looking at her like, what did she just say?
Yeah. I definitely think, I don't even want to talk about this as a movie anymore. I want to talk about our future TV show.
Honestly, like, and I think, listeners can gather it from here. It's just, the book is a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, the book is not, I feel like the book, and maybe they actually, now that I am saying this, I'm like thinking out loud right now. I bet you the book was slightly rushed because they optioned it and they wanted to get that movie done, because I feel like the book probably needed 2 or 3 more edits to make it a little bit more understandable and easy to read. And like, I think that it probably needed to be restructured just a little bit to make it easier for the audience, because I honestly think that the book is pretty boring and clinical. It's often very clinical, and it sucks because the story is so good. I really wanted to like it, and I want to recommend this book to others, but I don't know if I can, because I don't think a lot of people will be able to read it because it's so dry. But I bet you it was a little bit rushed, because had it been a few more edits, I think it could have been a better book. But it's like you're taking this book that's sort of dry, and then you're making it into an adaptation that's not that great. And if the movie came out the same year as the book, that means that they're working with drafts.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's no way. There's no way.
You know what could have really helped the movie? I don't know why I didn't think about this before. Is if the movie opened with the author of the book going to talk to Katherine Johnson.
Oh.
Because that's how the book actually starts, is she's talking to her dad who worked at NASA with these people.
Because she had a personal connection.
Yeah. And I feel like if that had been the opening to the movie and we're realizing that we're getting these stories from her directly, I think that might have changed how some of these things are
You
portrayed.
switch Janelle Monáe and she's the author.
What?
Janelle Monáe, you switch her character. Instead, she plays the author. Because part of the author, too, at the beginning when she's talking, she's like, people kept asking me, why are you bothering? Why are you so interested in this? And she's like, because there's a story here. And because there's a big story. And there's a lot of different people. That's so much more interesting.
Yes.
And the whole concept of hidden figures. She's discovering the hidden figures.
Yes.
Oh my God.
If Disney Plus wants to make a movie all about... Actually, oh my God. Disney owns the rights to Hidden Figures. Disney Plus is going to do the Hidden Figures TV show.
Page to Screen Productions. We're taking over this.
Yes. Hi, I know earlier I said I didn't want to, but TM. We own this. We came up with it first. You heard it here first.
Honestly, that's so much better. You've got like the writer as part of the structure of the story, and then each episode opening in with like a little quick, mathematical lesson.
Yes. I think that's really important too, because it really would solidify the fact that no one really knew how much was really going on in the back end. Oh my goodness, we should just end the podcast and start writing. I don't want to write this. Actually, we should write it. We can go to a coffee shop and have, we can drink tea and write together all day. Don't bother us for 24 hours. We're writing our big screenplay.
We can get some matcha tea and just write together and make our own little production of this and be better than the white man who tried to do the same.
Yeah. Actually, if we were going to do this, I would say that I think it should be the author of the book who writes it. And we just say, we're just consulting as two people who like to watch movies and TV.
Yeah.
We're not editing it. We shouldn't really have the strongest voice as two white women.
No, absolutely. And I don't want to knock her too hard, but it's something that I find that a decent amount of nonfiction writers do, where they get so excited about a subject matter that they want to talk about that they kind of need someone to come in and go, listen, I know that you think this is really cool. This is boring. So the next chapter, though, that is only 2 pages is really interesting. You need to work more on that. Yeah. And they're like, but I wanted to talk about the inception. No, you don't get to. What did I just say?
Because there was stuff in the epilogue that I was just like, I wanted to read about this. Yeah. Why? Honestly, I'm going to go back to the Apollo 13 situation with the math, because that just blew my mind. It blew my mind so much that I was talking to Jesse and I was like, you remember that movie Apollo 13 you loved so much? You know how all that stuff about, the Tom Hanks guy and how he was able to save everybody? You can thank her. Jesse's like, wait, what? Seriously? And I was like, yes. And he was like, what? And I was like, I know. Math. It's a universal language.
I don't speak it.
No habla mathematics.
No habla mathematical.
Hi, I don't speak math. Is it me yelling at a calculator? Excuse me. Do you know 2 + 2? Oh, it speaks math. Does anyone here speak math?
It's honestly embarrassing. It was like last week we're interviewing people at work, and we have this like fake test that we give people that we really like to see if they can actually make corrections on something. And we said, okay, you get 5 minutes. And I walked out and it was like 12:53, so 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, so we have to go back in at like 12:57. And they're like, that's not 5 minutes. Oh, right. That's an easy one.
Hey,
That's an easy one that I fucked up.
Can you give me the answers to your test?
Well, apparently, I don't know if I'm the best to even look at it. Well, no, actually, I am. It's all grammar and spelling. I'm good with that shit. I'm not so good with the math.
We're not good with the math. No, okay. I guess, wait, what do we do now? What are we
Well, I mean, I guess we can, because we've kind of been going like a butterfly floating in and out of it.
Yeah.
Do you recommend the book and do you recommend the movie?
Honestly, yes. Which is surprising for me because I recommend both, because if you are going to get somebody interested in the history of what these women did, watch the movie straight up. Mm-hmm. Because then they're naturally going to gravitate towards finding the book to learn more about these women if they were interested enough. So yeah, I would have to say yes to both, because I think it's important that we start the conversation about what women can do, especially women of color.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I don't know if I would read this book again, just because it was so long. Like, yeah. You did the same thing. Did the audiobook.
I did, yeah.
And it's like 10 hours.
It is 10 hours.
And I was like, I looked at that and went, that can't be right. And then you look at some of the chapters, and it's just like the Disney thing. You'll have a chapter that's 17 minutes long, and then there's a chapter that's 45 minutes long. And then the epilogue is 35 minutes, but the chapter before it is 19. And it's like the chapter before it is the one about space. Like, how do you wrap that up in 19 minutes? What? I thought space is vast and infinite. That should be at least 10 hours.
You think it would have taken up more space? No, I would say audiobook.
Yeah.
And even though I would recommend reading it, I think that like only a few like select people that I personally know would probably enjoy it. I think it's a little too dry for some people.
Yeah.
But the audiobook is one, like, I have some podcasts that I listen to because I really like miniseries podcasts. I like getting a lot of information, like, in, like, 8 to 10 episodes. And there's some podcasts that I can just listen all through on one Saturday. It's like, okay, I've got a Saturday. I've got to, clean the kitchen, do laundry. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm going to binge this one podcast today. Then there's some other podcasts that are so freaking dry. It's like every Friday I'm going to listen to one episode because I cannot put my brain. Like, I feel like this book would be better off in pieces. Yeah. So if you're listening to other books, you can take a break and listen to this one. Like, I would have probably been better doing that than listening to all of it within a tight week and a half, which is what I did.
Same. Because honestly, the only information I pulled out of this was Apollo 13. These women are insanely amazing. And
fuck Armageddon.
Yeah. Oh, God, Armageddon. And John Mayer apparently helped with us going to space. Listen.
Honestly, this book made me mad because I kept zoning out about all the space stuff and then listening to all the race stuff and getting really mad.
Yeah. But when they said John Mayer's name, I was like, I'm sorry, who? Like, that's my guitar. That's me playing guitar in space. John Mayer wasn't an astronaut, but he's apparently a super math genius. And also,
your space shuttle is a wonderland.
Yeah. Your rocket is a wonderland. It's not the same John Mayer. Apologies to anyone who thought it was.
I was like, whoa, where did he come from?
Yeah. He dropped a record, came back in time, helped out NASA, brought men to space, came back and was like, what's good? No, didn't happen. Well, now that we figured out if we would recommend it, we gotta do the book list.
Yes.
Bum bum ba da da. Book list. And it was this year. We say it every episode. This year, the book list is hard.
Yes.
Because last year we picked out some stinkers.
We picked out some big stinkers,
Yeah.
and this year we haven't really had any full-on stinkers.
No. Every one that we've read so far, I've really taken something away from it where I'm just
Yes.
like, I feel like each one makes me feel like I know myself a little bit more. Like, I just want to go back to the last episode with Mrs. Basil where I was just like so surprised by how much I took away from that book and how
Yeah.
it hit so hard. And I was like, I don't feel comfortable. I feel
Yeah.
I feel personally attacked right now, Mrs. Basil. But it's, you know, it's that sort of feeling. So we're picking up these books that I feel like are really resonating with a lot of stuff that's going on, you know, in our day-to-day lives, in our work lives, personal lives, everything. And it's so hard to do this list. Every episode hurts me a little bit.
Yeah.
And while we both recommended this, we got to follow the criteria that we set forth.
I feel like you're delaying.
I am
feel like
delaying.
You're delaying. Like, you don't even want to say it.
I don't. Okay. Once again, as a reminder, we do... Is it a direct page screen adaptation? And would we read it again? And would we watch it again?
Them's the rules, people.
We don't...
I'm not the one who makes this up.
I was going to say, we didn't make them up. We didn't. We really did. We are the reason that this is... Why are we like this? Why are we
We're
like
the reason.
this?
We're the reason for this season.
Okay. So without further ado, I guess we should give you the new updated... I almost said new and improved. It's not improved. It's just another book.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 is still a tie between Casino Royale and The Princess Bride. Number 2 is still Dr. No means no, yes means yes. The patriarchy has got to go. Number 3 is The Commitments. Number 4 is Cinderella / Ever After. 5, Willy William Wonka. 6, Bridget Jones. 7, How Stella Got Her Groove Back. 8, Mrs. Basil. And 9 is Hidden Figures. It's just not... It's not a direct adaptation. Mm-hmm. They put in a lot of stuff to sensationalize.
You know, as you were talking and kind of explaining some of the reasons why it is the last one, I just randomly thought last year when we did A Night to Remember.
Yeah.
Okay? Think about that book. He took a lot of information, a lot of interviews, a lot of really, for something so what, dry information, about the Titanic, where you can kind of tell that guy probably got off reading about how many, like, plates of china that they bought on Titanic. Like, you know, he's got the figures for all of that, and he finds it fascinating, but he trimmed the fat. Like, that book has the need to know for the Titanic, and the movie took almost everything from the book. Like, the movie actually paid a decent amount of attention, and it did combine characters, it combined information, but obviously it's one night, it's one ship, it's a lot more, you know, easy to explain to an audience, so I'm not naive to that, but this book and this movie is not that. Like, it's not a great adaptation, and it's not, like, there's flaws on both, but it's just such an interesting story. It's hard for us to put it at the last. Yeah.
This is like Stella all over again, because I don't want it to be last, because it's not bad. And I've taken away so much from this book and from the movie, and now I want to be even more sassy in my day-to-day life. To honor these women and their...
I want to steal some signs and put them in my purse.
Yeah. Also, I need every outfit from this movie delivered to my closet as soon as humanly possible. I don't know who I have to call about that. Is it Disney? Is it Fox Searchlight? Somebody tell me where to get these things, because my God, are these women gorgeous in this movie. and it killed me.
Her wedding dress.
I don't even want. Oh my god!
And the veil, the little hat,
the little tiny veil. Oh my god, she was so
beautiful. Cute. She looks so pretty.
I loved everything. The dress she wears when they're dancing around the kitchen.
Yeah.
So cute. Oh my god. Anyway, I could talk about the fashion in this all day. But
we didn't even talk about Mahershala Ali because he is so
good.
Sweet and he's so handsome.
Oh my god, the engagement.
Yeah.
Jessie could tell you I was like ready to cry on the couch when they're all sitting there at dinner and she's like, did I forget somebody's birthday? And then she looks down and sees the box. It was just like, and then he says that the ring was from his mom and his dad were married for like 50 years. And then at the end credits are like, and they're still married 56 years later. I was done. I was dead. I was out. I was like, take me out now. Jesus, take me out now. Like, I gotta go lay down for like 4 hours and cry.
My favorite part was just, you were talking about how these women were not afraid to be intelligent. And now I think that there is a stigma grew about that. And like you and I, when we were teenagers and becoming young women, it was popular to be hot, blonde, and dumb. Mm-hmm. Like that was what was in the early 2000s. And I love like when they have their meet cute and when she sort of expects him to respond negatively to her and she talks about her accomplishments. And then when she walks away and his look, he's like, oh, she's smart and I'm turned on.
Yeah.
Like, that was like his look, I think, was, oh, she's so fucking smart and that's hot.
He knew he made a mistake. Because his whole comment is like, I didn't know they let women... Like, I didn't know they let women work at NASA. And she was like, I'm not just a woman. And I was like, ooh. And she's like, they respect me not because I wear a skirt, but because I wear glasses. And I was like, yeah, I wear glasses too. No one respects me. It's a different time now.
No, so cute.
Yeah, it was really cute.
It should be at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. It's just there's so much in this movie that we don't really brush up on, and a lot of the stuff that we also didn't talk about too, it's just so like weird stuff that they added in, and so that's really why it's at the bottom. But I mean, that doesn't take away from the fact that I think everyone should read it and watch it. But
yeah, for sure.
But from the struggles of these women to what I'm so okay, listen, I can't make a bridge between this and what we're about to read. What I'm going to say is that Christina promised me after Bridget Jones that she wanted some source material and she was going to watch the BBC version of Pride and Prejudice, and it is happening.
I'm so freaking excited, and I've read Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies. So I
halfway there.
Read Pride and Prejudice.
You were halfway there.
I kind of read it. All he did was just add in zombies.
I am so excited. I am so excited for you to watch. I don't care if you read the book. Just watch this. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I just want to talk.
Half the podcast.
Listen, I just want to talk about Pride and Prejudice, the BBC show.
And Colin Firth.
I just want to talk about Colin Firth.
I'm so excited. I'm honestly so excited. I've never watched the Colin Firth BBC, and I'm very excited. And I feel like this is going to be a big moment for me. I just have a feeling.
You just have to dedicate a whole weekend to just watching, because it is long. It's very long.
Question.
Yes.
Because I have actually not yet. Well, I started Pride and Prejudice. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty early on in the book. Will it throw me off if I actually start the BBC, like, today?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Because usually I try to do the book first and then...
I think it might skew your view of the characters.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
maybe not. I
mean, listen, if you want to read the whole book being like, oh, Mr. Darcy, you look so much like Colin Firth, that's so weird, then definitely start. No worries. I feel like that's my problem with a lot of Jane Austen adaptations is I've seen the movies and the TV versions before I read anything. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm like, wow, Cher in Clueless is so weird in this version of
sometimes I benefit from that a little bit because I genuinely have a bad time with names and and numbers and lots of things. But
Same.
the point is, like,
as we both push up our glasses.
When we read The Godfather, it was actually a little bit easier for me to read it, knowing some of the actors and their names because I could keep track of the characters. And with Hidden Figures, that was another one because I knew the actresses from the movie. So when they popped up, I'm like, okay, that's, what's her face? Mm-hmm. So I kind of knew it. So in a way, maybe it'll help. I don't know.
I think it might. Actually, it might. It's just, oh God, it's so good. I want to watch it right now. I have to start reading Pride and Prejudice, but I really want to watch it right now. Like, honestly, I'm excited for this because on top of that, there is something else that I want you to watch.
Okay.
That I've watched 100 times. 100 times.
Okay.
I want you to watch, but it's also based off of a book. So I don't know if you should watch it.
Wait, you're talking about that show?
No, I'm talking about a movie. I want you to watch Austenland.
But that's a whole other book. That could be a whole other episode.
And it's gonna have to be. After this, we're gonna you have to do it. If it has to be my birthday pick next year, so be it. But I want it.
It could be the first pick of 2023. Why don't we make it the first pick of 2023?
Okay, done. Look for it. 2023. Page to Screen Productions presents Christina finally watching Austenland. Like, honest to goodness, Jesse loves this movie. Jesse doesn't love a lot of rom-coms. He loves this movie.
Who is the actress?
It is, I almost said Felicity. That's who it is. Felicity from Felicity. What's her name?
What's her face from Rogue One?
Yes. Or waitress, if you will. Carrie Russell. Carrie Russell. I love that we are both from like, Felicity. Or, Rogue One.
Because isn't her name Felicity Jones, the chick in Rogue One? Felicity Huffman.
No. Okay, we're going to have a longer discussion about you and names later. But it also has Jennifer Coolidge in the movie.
Oh, I love Jennifer Coolidge.
And there are some things that she definitely says in this movie where I'm just like, I'm 100% certain that was not scripted. I know for a fact that can't be scripted. It's just too good. It's so funny. I love it. Oh my God. We're going to do it. Coming to you in January 2023. It's happening.
Coming in hot.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. I mean,
a transformer.
Robots in disguise. Autobots roll out. That's not even a book. Why are we doing this?
It's the end of the road.
Why? Why are we this way? Okay, well, now that we're done with Hidden Figures and Pride and Prejudice is coming up, I guess now it's time to say goodbye. No, I think that's it. I mean, is there anything else you want to say about Hidden Figures?
No. I'm glad that we did it.
Yeah.
I'm happy that we read it and we watched it and it was a pleasant experience and I'm ready for my next experience.
Yes. Okay, so then I guess thank you all for listening to this episode that went somewhere. we went all over the place on this one.
Space. We went to space.
Yeah, we went to space. We did go to space. We did it. I mean, we didn't do it, but they did it. So thank you all.
Just like a white woman taking all the credit.
Look at me taking credit. I went to space. You know who was first on the moon? Me. But they don't talk about that. No. Should ask Siri how many miles it takes to get to space. She would know. She's a genius. I'm not.
I do like when happy accidents happen, though. Think about the last book we did, written by a woman. Mm-hmm. This one, written by a woman. Next one, written by a woman. It's a little nice because sometimes it's a little bit of a sausage party.
Oh,
when you're swimming through books to read.
Our first year was just man heavy.
Very much a sausage party.
It was man heavy, and it was all men with problems.
But at least some of them were gay problems.
Yes, I appreciated that.
Yeah. Change it up just a little bit.
Just a wee bit. I can relate a little bit more to that than I can to some other man problems.
Like having to push a cat into an ATM.
Yeah, or like, I'm a man and society's weird, so let's all punch each other. Cool.
Oh, I'm a man and look at all my IKEA products.
Yeah. Yes. I forgot that was the whole thing. Like, oh, my table's from IKEA, my couch from IKEA. Oh, big deal, so is mine.
It's like, hi, I'm a black female engineer and they won't let me pee. That's a little bit more of a problem.
Yeah. Oh, tell me more about your IKEA table. Oh, disrupt society now with your IKEA products. We shot a man to the moon with math.
I like how the next book too, like the problem of the woman is like, I'm poor and I don't want to have to conform to society, and he's like, well, your family's gross.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, he is. Your mom is trying to sell you off to the first rich man she finds. Your family is disgusting. Tell me more about your issues. Pride and Prejudice. We just knocked it out. We don't even have to do the episode. We did it. Spoiler alert. That's the whole book. No. Okay. Thank you all for listening and sticking through this.
Thank you, Jessie.
Yeah, and thank you, Jessie, our Q, for making us sound real good. Christina learned about room noise.
Room silence something?
Yeah, something editing. But thank you. And as always, thank you, Christina.
Aw, thank you, Nikki.
And until next time with Pride and Prejudice, right? Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'm going to wear my nap dress. Oh, cottagecore. We should do more of this where we can see each other. We should dress. Next week we're going to dress.
Today we're naked.
Don't tell them.
Next time we should get dressed. That's a good, wise idea, dressed. Nikki.
I'm still in my PJs. Okay. But
like for my...
I hope you guys all enjoyed this. Okay, now we need to let the people go, Christina.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.